Jake Harrison floated in the command chair of the human ship New Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. He had been awake for 3 days now, ever since the ship's computer woke him from deep sleep to deal with the broken engine. The rest of his crew was still sleeping in their pods, waiting for him to fix whatever had gone wrong. The ship had been traveling through space for 2 years, heading toward a new star system where humans hoped to build their first colony outside of Earth's solar system. Jake was the mission commander, a job he had trained for his whole life. He was 35 years old, short brown hair, and the kind of steady hands that came from years of flying spacecraft. But now they were stuck. The quantum drive that pushed them faster than light had broken down near a star system that wasn't on any of their maps. Jake had been trying to fix it himself, crawling through the ship's tight spaces and replacing damaged parts. It was hard work, but nothing he couldn't handle. What Jake didn't know was that they had drifted into space controlled by something called the Galactic Federation. This was a group of alien races that had been living together peacefully for over 2,000 years. They had rules about who could travel through their space. Humans weren't on the approved list. The Federation's patrol ships found the New Horizon drifting near the edge of their territory. The alien crews had never seen anything like it before. The ship was built differently from their vessels, with thick metal walls and heavy shielding that looked like it was designed to survive in very dangerous places. Captain Zentara commanded the lead Federation patrol ship. She was a Vorthok, one of the older races in the Federation. Her species looked like tall, thin humans, but with pale blue skin and large eyes that could see many different types of light. The Vorthok were known for being careful and peaceful, which made them good at first contact situations. When Zentara's ship scanned the human vessel, the readings confused her crew. The ship's gravity was set to 1.0 standard units, which was higher than any civilized species could survive. The atmosphere was a mixture of gases that would be poisonous to most Federation races. Even worse, the ship's hull showed signs of exposure to radiation levels that should have killed everyone inside. Jake was in the engine room when his ship's alarms started going off. The computer told him that 3 unknown ships were approaching. He quickly made his way to the bridge and tried to contact the strangers. Using the universal greeting signals that Earth scientists had prepared, the aliens responded. But their message was in languages Jake had never heard before. Luckily, the Federation ships had translation computers that could learn new languages quickly. Within an hour, Jake was talking directly to Captain Zentara. The conversation started normally enough. Jake explained that his ship was from a planet called Earth, and that they were explorers looking for new worlds to live on. Zentara introduced herself as a representative of the Galactic Federation, and Zentara had offered to help repair their ship. But when the Federation boarding party came aboard, the New Horizon, everything changed. Jake decided to wake up his second-in-command, Lisa Morgan, to help with the first contact meeting. Lisa was a career military officer who had served on Earth space stations before joining the exploration mission. She was smart, calm under pressure, and good at dealing with people from different backgrounds. As Lisa came out of her sleep pod, she moved easily in the ship's normal Earth gravity. The alien visitors, who had been floating in their anti-gravity suits, watched in amazement as she simply walked across the deck like it was nothing. To them, it looked like she was carrying an invisible weight that should have crushed her bones. The real shock came when the aliens asked to see more of the ship. Jake and Lisa gave them a tour, starting with the living areas and then moving to the workspaces. Everything seemed normal to the humans, but the aliens kept making worried sounds and taking readings with their instruments. When they reached the ship's exercise room, they found Danny Walsh in the middle of his daily workout. Danny was the ship's security chief, a big man with dark hair who had served in Earth's military before joining the space program. He was lying on his back, pushing a heavy bar loaded with metal weights up and down above his chest. The aliens froze in horror. Danny was lifting almost twice his own body weight in what the Federation considered crushing gravity. The Vorthok delegation started backing away, thinking they were watching some kind of torture or punishment. When Jake explained that this was normal exercise for humans, Captain Zentara asked to speak privately with her crew, Dr. Alex Carter. The mission's doctor and scientist tried to calm the aliens down by explaining human biology. Alex was a quiet man in his 40s who had spent years studying how humans might adapt to life on other planets. He thought the aliens would be interested in learning about human evolution and biology. Instead, every fact he shared made things worse. When he mentioned that humans had evolved as hunters who could run for hours without stopping, the aliens looked sick. When he explained that humans could survive in temperatures from far below freezing to extremely hot, they started checking their weapons. The worst moment came when Alex casually mentioned that Earth was what humans considered a normal, pleasant world to live on. We described Earth's weather, its gravity, its radiation from the sun, and its mixture of gases in the air. To human ears, it sounded like a description of home. To the Federation aliens, it sounded like a description of hell. Captain Zentara asked Alex to repeat the information about Earth's environment. When he did, she immediately contacted her ship and requested emergency communication with the Federation Council. Jake could hear her speaking rapidly in her own language, using words that the translation computer marked as terms for danger and emergency. Lisa asked what was wrong, but the aliens wouldn't explain. Instead, they asked to examine the humans themselves. Dr. Carter agreed to let the Federation medical officers scan him with their instruments. The results left the aliens speechless. According to their readings, humans were biological impossibilities. Their bones were dense enough to survive gravity that would crush most Federation species. Their muscles were designed for strength and endurance that exceeded anything in Federation records. Their skin could protect them from radiation that would kill civilized beings in minutes. But the most frightening discovery came when the aliens learned about human blood. The red liquid that carried oxygen through human bodies was far more efficient than anything the Federation had seen. It could carry huge amounts of oxygen and nutrients, even under extreme pressure. It could also clot quickly to seal wounds and fight off infections that would kill other species. Danny Walsh, still covered in sweat from his workout, offered the aliens some water from the ship's supply. When they tested it, they found it contained minerals and chemicals that would be poisonous to most Federation races. The humans drank this liquid every day and considered it pure and clean. As the day went on, more details came out that shocked the alien visitors. Humans could eat foods that would kill other species. They could survive injuries that would be fatal to civilized beings. They could work and fight in environments that the Federation used as natural barriers between star systems. By the end of the first day, Captain Zentara had received orders from the Federation Council. The human ship was to be escorted to Federation space immediately. Humans would be placed under protective custody while the Council decided what to do about them. Jake protested that his people were peaceful explorers, not threats, but as. He looked at the fear in the aliens' eyes. He began to understand that humans were something the galaxy had never seen before. They weren't just another intelligent species looking to join the galactic community. They were survivors from a world so dangerous that their very existence challenged everything the Federation thought they knew about life in the universe. The journey to Zentara Prime took 5 days. During that time, the human ship New Horizon was surrounded by 12 Federation escort vessels, each one keeping a safe distance from what they now called the unknown threat. Jake Harrison spent most of those days trying to convince Captain Zentara that his people meant no harm to anyone, but the Federation wasn't taking any chances. They had sent messages ahead to the Council of Worlds, warning them that something dangerous was coming to their capital planet. Emergency sessions were being held across Federation space as representatives from 47 different species tried to understand what humans really were. Ben Taylor was chosen to speak for humanity at the council hearings. Ben was the New Horizons pilot, a stocky man with gray hair who had flown ships through Earth's storms and asteroid fields for 20 years. He had a calm way of talking that made people trust him, which Jake thought would help when dealing with scared aliens. Lisa Morgan worked with Ben to prepare for the meetings ahead. She reviewed everything they knew about human history, biology, and culture, trying to find ways to explain their species that wouldn't frighten the Federation even more. It was hard work because everything about humans seemed to scare the aliens. When they arrived at Zentara Prime, the humans got their first look at what the Federation considered a perfect world. The planet had light gravity, a gentle climate, and skies that were always clear and blue. The cities were built from crystal and metal that sparkled in the soft sunlight. Everything looked peaceful and safe. The human ship was directed to dock at a special facility far from the main city. Federation security forces surrounded the area, and no civilians were allowed nearby. It reminded Jake of how his own people might handle a dangerous disease or a bomb that might explode. Dr. Rachel, Kim, was the first human to leave the ship and walk on an alien world. Rachel was an expert in studying different cultures and societies. She had hoped to learn about alien civilizations and share human knowledge with new friends. Instead, she found herself being studied like a dangerous animal. The Federation scientists who met Rachel were fascinated and terrified by everything she did. When she walked normally in the planet's light gravity, they gasped and took measurements. When she breathed the planet's air through a simple filter mask, they couldn't believe she wasn't dying from the toxic atmosphere. The real problem started when Rachel tried to explain human society and culture. She told the aliens about Earth's cities, where millions of humans lived close together in tall buildings. The Federation representatives couldn't understand how so many dangerous beings could live in one place without constant warfare. She explained human sports and games, thinking the aliens would enjoy learning about friendly competition. Instead, they were horrified by descriptions of boxing, football, and racing. To the Federation, these activities sounded like combat training in preparation for war. The worst moment came when Rachel mentioned that humans enjoyed something called extreme sports. She described mountain climbing, skydiving, and deep-sea diving as fun activities that humans did in their free time. The aliens thought she was describing elaborate suicide rituals. Meanwhile, Mike Stevens was causing his own problems in the AN ship's engineering section. Mike was a tall, thin man who had worked on spacecraft engines since he was 18 years old. He was good at fixing things and making them work better, which seemed like it would be helpful when dealing with alien technology. But when Mike offered to help repair some damage to the docking facility, the Federation engineers panicked. They watched in amazement as he worked with tools and machinery in ways they had never seen before. He could lift heavy parts that should have required mechanical assistance. He could work in spaces that were too small for most Federation species. Worst of all, Mike seemed to understand how machines worked just by looking at them. He made improvements to the docking facility's systems that the Federation engineers hadn't thought of in decades of use. To them, it looked like he was weaponizing their equipment. Dr. Katie Reynolds, ship's medical officer, tried to help by sharing human medical knowledge with Federation doctors. Katie was a kind woman who had always believed that healing was something all intelligent species could share. She thought medical science would be a safe topic for cooperation. She was wrong. When Katie explained how human medicine worked, the Federation doctors were shocked by what they heard. Humans performed surgery by cutting into bodies with sharp instruments. They used radiation and chemicals to fight diseases. They could replace damaged organs with artificial parts or organs from other humans. To the Federation, human medicine sounded more like torture than healing. Their own medical techniques used gentle energy fields and natural harmony to treat illness. The idea of cutting into a living body or poisoning it with chemicals seemed barbaric and cruel. The council hearings began on the third day after the humans arrived. The Great Assembly Hall on Zentara Prime had never been used for an emergency session like this one. Representatives from every Federation species gathered to hear about the creatures from the death world called Earth. Ben Taylor stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who stared at him with fear and curiosity. He could see armed guards at every exit and sensors pointed at him from every direction. He felt like a prisoner, not a guest. The questioning began with simple topics like human history and government. Ben explained that Earth had many different nations and groups, but they had learned to work together for space exploration. The aliens seemed confused by the idea of different human groups cooperating instead of fighting. Then the questions became more difficult. The Federation wanted to know about human population growth, territorial expansion, and military capabilities. Ben tried to explain that humans were explorers and builders, not conquerors, but the aliens didn't seem convinced. When they asked about Earth's environment, Ben found himself describing a world that sounded deadly even to him. He talked about hurricanes that could destroy cities, earthquakes that could split the ground open, and volcanoes that could bury entire regions in ash and lava. To him, these were just natural disasters that humans had learned to live with. To the aliens, they sounded like weapons of mass destruction. The Federation's chief scientist, a Christian named Scifi, presented the results of their studies on human biology. The report was full of numbers and measurements that proved humans were unlike anything in Federation records according to their classification system. Worlds were rated from Class 1, perfect for life, to Class 8, barely survivable. No known species had evolved on anything higher than Class 6. But Earth, according to their measurements, was a Class 12 death world. The announcement sent shockwaves through the assembly hall. Several representatives had to be given medical attention. Others demanded that the humans be quarantined immediately to protect Federation worlds from contamination. Ben tried to defend his species, explaining that humans were peaceful and wanted only to explore and learn. But every fact he shared made things worse. When he mentioned that Earth had over 8 billion humans living on one planet, several aliens fainted from shock. Sophie Davis, the ship's communications officer, had been monitoring Federation broadcasts during the hearings. Sophie was a young woman with red hair who was good at languages and understanding how different groups of people thought, and what she learned worried her greatly. The Federation news networks were calling humans the Death World invasion and the end of civilization. Fear was spreading across Federation space as people learned about the creatures who could survive on Class 12 worlds. Some species were demanding that their governments prepare for war. Other species were more curious than afraid. They wanted to study humans and learn how Death World evolution worked. But even their scientific interests felt dangerous to the humans, who didn't want to be treated like laboratory animals. As the hearings continued, it became clear that the Federation didn't know what to do with humanity. Couldn't let the humans go free, because Deathworlders loose in civilized space was too dangerous to imagine. But they couldn't destroy them either, because humans hadn't actually done anything wrong. The solution they came up with was something called protective custody. The humans would be allowed to live, but only in a special facility where they couldn't threaten anyone. They would be studied and observed, but never allowed to return to their home or contact other humans who might be traveling through space. Ben Taylor listened to the council's decision with growing anger. His people had come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. Instead, they were being treated like dangerous criminals who had to be locked away from decent society. But as he looked around the assembly hall at the hundreds of alien faces staring at him with fear, Ben began to understand something important. Humans weren't just different from other species in the galaxy. They were so different that their very existence challenged everything the Federation believed about life and civilization. The question now was whether humans and aliens could ever learn to live together, or whether the galaxy was big enough for both civilized species and Deathworlders. The alarm bells had been ringing on Zentara Prime for 3 hours when Admiral Scott Johnson received the emergency message at Haven Station. The Federation's long-range sensors had detected something massive approaching from the direction of Earth, and panic was spreading through the galactic government like wildfire. Scott was a veteran of Earth's space defense forces, gray-haired man who had spent 40 years dealing with crises and emergencies. He had arrived at Haven Station 6 months earlier with 50 more humans to help with the cultural exchange program. Now he found himself trying to calm down aliens who thought humanity was about to invade their galaxy. The Federation military, Commander General Vexton of the Zelani species, contacted Haven Station directly. His four-armed body was shaking with fear as he appeared on the communication screen. Behind him, Scott could see Federation officers running back and forth in what looked like barely controlled panic. Admiral Johnson, General Vexton, said, in his translated voice, "Your species has deceived us. Our sensors show 12 massive vessels approaching from your home system. This is clearly an invasion force. We demand an explanation." Scott looked at the sensor data the Federation had shared with him. The energy signatures were indeed massive, much larger than anything the Federation had in their military. The ships were moving in formation and heading directly toward Federation space. To alien eyes, it certainly looked like an attack was coming, but Scott recognized those energy patterns. He had helped design some of the systems creating those signatures. A slow smile spread across his face as he realized what was really happening. General Scott said calmly, "Those aren't warships. It's the second wave expedition from Earth. They're colonists and explorers, just like the people you already have here at Haven Station." The alien general's face went pale. "Colonists? You mean there are more of your kind coming? How many more?" Scott checked his personal records and found the mission details he remembered from his briefings on Earth. "Well, the second wave is carrying about 10,000 people. They're looking for planets to settle on and build new homes. It's nothing hostile about it." The general made a choking sound that the translation computer couldn't interpret. Behind him, several Federation officers had stopped running and were now staring at the communication screen in horror. 10,000? The general whispered. 10,000 Deathworlders are coming to our space." Scott nodded. "That's right. And if I remember correctly, the third wave launched about 6 months after the second wave, so they should arrive in another year or so. They're bringing even more people and better equipment." General Vexen sat down heavily in his chair. "How many waves are there?" "Oh, we plan for at least 6 major waves," Scott said cheerfully. "Maybe more if the colony program goes well. Earth has a lot of people who want to explore new worlds and build new lives. Space is big, so there's plenty of room for everyone." Communication ended abruptly as the general apparently fainted. Scott shook his head and wondered why the aliens were so upset about human expansion into space. Earth had been overcrowded for centuries. Spreading out to new worlds seemed like the natural thing to do. Meanwhile, on the lead ship of the second wave expedition, Captain Troy Newman was dealing with his own communication problems. Troy was a career space officer who had commanded research vessels and cargo ships throughout the outer solar system. He was supposed to be leading humanity's largest colonization mission, but instead he found himself surrounded by Federation warships demanding his surrender. The Federation fleet commander was a Vorthok named Admiral Kisara, sister to the Captain Tisara who had first encountered humans. She appeared on Troy's communication screen looking stern and determined, but Troy could see the fear in her large alien eyes. "Human vessel," Admiral Kisara announced. "You are entering Federation space with what appears to be an invasion fleet. You will stop your advance immediately and prepare to be boarded." Troy looked around his bridge at his human crew members who seemed confused by the aliens' attitude. His second-in-command, Commander Lisa Barnes, raised an eyebrow and shrugged. Lisa was an experienced officer who had helped plan the colonization mission back on Earth. Admiral Troy replied politely, "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. We're not invading anyone. We're colonists looking for empty worlds where we can build new settlements. Our government sent messages about our mission months ago." The alien admiral's expression didn't change. "Your colonization fleet consists of 12 massive vessels with energy outputs that exceed our largest battleships. You carry thousands of Deathworlders armed with technology we don't understand. How is this not an invasion?" Troy was starting to understand the problem. "Admiral, these aren't warships. They're colony ships designed to carry people, supplies, and equipment to new worlds. The energy you're detecting comes from our life support systems, manufacturing facilities, and terraforming equipment." "Terraforming equipment," the Admiral repeated. The translation computer seemed to have trouble with the concept. "Yes," Troy explained patiently. "Equipment for changing dead planets into places where humans can live. We find worlds that nobody else wants and make them suitable for human habitation. It's completely peaceful." Admiral Kisara was quiet for a long moment. "You have the ability to change entire planets?" "Well, sure," Troy said. "It's not easy, but humans have been planning to terraform worlds for decades. Mars in our home system was our first successful project. We've gotten pretty good at it." The alien admiral turned to speak with her officers in their own language. Troy could hear them talking rapidly, but the translation computer couldn't keep up with their excited conversation. When she turned back to the communication screen, she looked even more worried than before. "Captain Newman," she said carefully, "what types of worlds do humans consider suitable for terraforming?" Troy thought about it for a moment. "Anything, really. High-gravity worlds, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, high radiation environments. The more challenging, the better, actually. Are people like planets that give them something to work with?" Behind the alien admiral, Troy could hear what sounded like someone being sick. The admiral herself looked like she was having trouble breathing. "Seek out dangerous worlds on purpose?" she asked weakly. "Of course," Troy replied. "Those are the planets that nobody else wants, so there are no territorial disputes. Plus, humans enjoy the challenge of making hostile environments into good places to live. It's kind of our specialty." The communication ended suddenly, and Troy found himself staring at a blank screen. He turned to Commander Barnes, who looked as confused as he felt. "I don't think they understand what we're trying to do," Lisa said, before Troy could reply. His communications officer received a message from Dr. Amanda Foster back at Haven Station. Amanda was a biologist who had been working with Federation scientists for months, trying to help them understand human biology and culture. "Captain Newman," Amanda's message said, "you need to know that the Federation is in a complete panic about your arrival. They think you're bringing an invasion force because they don't understand that humans naturally expand into space when our population grows." Troy activated the return communication. "Dr. Foster, we sent all the proper notifications about our colonization mission. Didn't they read our messages?" Amanda's face appeared on the screen, and she looked exhausted. "Captain, they read the messages, but they didn't understand them. When humans talk about claiming new worlds and establishing territorial control, it sounds like military conquest to them. Federation species don't expand aggressively like we do." "We're not being aggressive," Troy protested. "We're just looking for empty space to build new homes." "I know that," Amanda said, "but look at it from their perspective. In less than a year, they've discovered that humans exist, learned that we come from a world so dangerous they didn't think life was possible there. And now, 12 ships full of us are arriving to claim territory in their space. They're terrified." Situation became even more complicated when long-range sensors detected the third wave expedition. Still 18 months away, but already visible to Federation detection systems. The third wave was even larger than the second wave, carrying advanced industrial equipment and enough people to establish permanent colonies on multiple worlds. General Frank Morrison, the military advisor traveling with the second wave, found himself in emergency negotiations with Federation defense forces. Frank was a tough soldier who had spent years dealing with territorial disputes on Earth, but he had never faced anything like this situation. The problem, Frank explained to Admiral Cassara during their tense meeting, is that you think human expansion is military in nature. It's not. It's biological. When human populations grow beyond what their current territory can support, they naturally spread out to find new places to live. The alien admiral shook her head. "But you speak of claiming worlds and establishing control. This sounds like conquest." Frank sighed. "Admiral, when humans say we're going to claim a world, we mean we're going to live there and build cities and farms. When we say we're establishing control, we mean we're going to set up governments and laws. It's not about conquering anyone." 6 months after the second wave arrived, the Federation faced a problem they had never imagined possible. 30,000 humans were now living in their space, and more were coming every day. The third wave expedition was only 12 months away, and Earth had already announced plans for a fourth wave that would be even larger. Admiral Patricia Collins commanded the third wave from her flagship, a massive colony ship called New Earth. Patricia was a veteran space officer who had spent years preparing for humanity's expansion into the galaxy. She was tough, smart, and completely unafraid of the challenges ahead. The Federation Council had been meeting almost every day for months, trying to figure out what to do about the human problem. Some species wanted to fight, others wanted to run away to distant parts of the galaxy, and a few wanted to try working with the Deathworlders. The breakthrough came when Captain Gary Mitchell established the first permanent human settlement on a world the Federation had written off as completely uninhabitable. The planet was designated as Kepler 438b in Federation records, but the human colonists called it New Montana. Gary was a frontier explorer who had grown up on the rough mining colonies of Earth's asteroid belt. He was exactly the kind of person who looked at a dangerous world and saw it as an opportunity rather than a threat. New Montana had crushing gravity, a toxic atmosphere, and weather that included acid storms and earthquakes that could split mountains in half. To the Federation, it was a nightmare world that killed anything foolish enough to land there. To Gary and his team of 200 volunteers, it was perfect. Within 3 months, they had established a thriving settlement complete with farms, factories, and homes for their families. The Federation sent observation teams to watch the New Montana colony, expecting to document the inevitable disaster when the Deathworlders finally encountered something too dangerous for even them to handle. Instead, they watched in amazement, as humans not only survived, but prospered in conditions that would have wiped out any civilized species. Dr. Nathan Price, the colony's chief scientist, sent regular reports back to both Earth and the Federation about their progress. Nathan was a geologist who specialized in hostile environments, and he was fascinated by the challenges New Montana presented. "The acid storms are actually helpful for our mining operations," Nathan reported cheerfully. "They dissolve the surface rock and expose the valuable minerals underneath. We just wait for the storms to pass, then send out our collection teams in protective gear." The Federation scientists who read Nathan's reports couldn't believe what they were hearing. The humans were using natural disasters as industrial tools. They were turning the planet's deadliest features into advantages for their settlement. Even more shocking was Nathan's casual mention that New Montana was already requesting additional colonists. The settlement was growing so fast that they needed more people to help with the expansion projects they had planned. Ambassador Helen Carter arrived with the third wave to take over diplomatic relations with the Federation. Helen was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties and trade agreements on Earth for over 20 years. She was calm, patient, and very good at helping different groups find ways to work together. Helen's first meeting with the Federation Council was unlike anything in the galaxy's diplomatic history. She sat calmly in the Great Assembly Hall, while hundreds of alien representatives stared at her with mixtures of fear, curiosity, and amazement. "Honorable representatives," Helen began, "I think it's time we stop pretending that humans are going to go away or that we can be contained in small spaces. We're here, we're growing in numbers, and we're going to keep expanding, whether you help us or not." The council chamber erupted in nervous chatter as the aliens discussed Helen's blunt statement. She waited patiently for them to quiet down before continuing. "But here's what I'm offering," she said. "Instead of fighting each other or being afraid of each other, let's find ways to help each other. Humans are good at living in dangerous places and doing dangerous jobs. The Federation is good at science, technology, and peaceful cooperation. We can work together." Federation Chancellor Mordain, an elderly Kristen who had led the council for decades, spoke for the assembled representatives. "Ambassador Carter, what exactly are you proposing?" Helen smiled. "I'm proposing that we formalize what's already happening. Humans will take responsibility for the dangerous regions of space that the Federation can't or won't patrol. We'll settle the worlds that are too hostile for your species. In exchange, you share your knowledge and technology with us, and we provide security services in areas where your people can't operate safely." The idea was revolutionary. For thousands of years, the Federation had simply avoided the most dangerous parts of their territory. Nebulae full of radiation, asteroid fields with unstable gravity, and planets with extreme environments were marked as no-go zones and left alone. But to humans, these areas represented valuable real estate and exciting challenges. The Federation's forbidden zones were exactly the kinds of places where human settlements would thrive. The first test of this new cooperation came sooner than anyone expected. Commander Nick Turner was leading a routine patrol mission in the Outer Vale region when his ship received a distress call from a Federation. Research Station Nick was a combat veteran who had served on Earth's frontier defense ships before joining the colonization program. He was the kind of officer who ran toward danger instead of away from it, which made him perfect for the job of protecting Federation interests in hostile space. The research station was under attack by creatures the Federation called Void Hunters. These were crystalline beings that fed on electrical energy and could survive in the vacuum of space. They had been attracted to the research station's power systems and were slowly draining the facility's life support. Federation military forces had tried to drive off the Void Hunters for weeks, but their weapons and tactics were designed for civilized warfare between intelligent species. The Void Hunters weren't intelligent in any way the Federation understood. They couldn't be reasoned with or frightened away. Nick's ship arrived to find the research station surrounded by dozens of the crystalline creatures, each one the size of a small spacecraft. Federation rescue ships were keeping their distance, afraid to get close enough to help the trapped researchers. "This is Commander Turner of the human vessel Pioneer," Nick announced on the emergency frequency. "We're moving in to assist." The Federation fleet commander tried to warn Nick away. "Commander, those creatures are immune to our weapons. They absorb energy attacks and use them to grow stronger. There's nothing you can do." Nick looked at his crew and grinned. "Admiral, you've been trying to fight these things with energy weapons. Has anyone tried just shooting them with old-fashioned projectiles?" 20 minutes later, Nick's crew had cleared the Void Hunters away from the research station. Using simple kinetic weapons that fired solid metal projectiles at high speed, the crystalline creatures, which could absorb and redirect energy attacks, were completely vulnerable to being physically smashed by chunks of metal. The rescue operation was a complete success, and word of the human victory spread quickly through Federation space. For the first time, people began to see the Deathworlders as protectors rather than threats. Dr. Kevin Brooks, who'd been working at Haven Station, was called in to treat the rescued researchers. Kevin was a medical officer who specialized in treating injuries and illnesses that occurred in extreme environments. His aggressive treatment methods had already saved several alien lives, though they still made Federation doctors nervous. The success at the research station led to more requests for human assistance in dangerous situations. Pirates operating in asteroid fields found themselves facing human security forces who could maneuver in crushing gravity and survive in hard vacuum. Rescue missions in radiation-soaked nebulae were handled by human crews who could work in conditions that would kill other species in minutes. Within a year, the Deathworlder Accords were signed by both the Federation Council and Earth's colonial government. The agreement gave humans exclusive rights to settle and develop worlds classified as Class 9 or higher, while guaranteeing Federation access to human security services in dangerous regions of space. President Alan Rodriguez arrived from Earth, aboard the massive colony ship New Earth, to oversee the final negotiations. Alan was an experienced politician who understood that successful treaties required both sides to get something they wanted. "The way I see it," Alan told the Federation Council during the signing ceremony, "we're all stronger when we work together. Humans get the dangerous frontier worlds we want to settle, and the Federation gets protectors who can go places your people can't survive." The ceremony took place on Haven Station, which had grown from a simple research facility into a thriving city where humans and aliens worked side by side. Children from both species played together in the station's parks, though the human children had to be careful not to accidentally hurt their more fragile alien friends. Lieutenant Colonel Chris Adams stood in the station's observation deck, watching the stars and thinking about how much had changed since the first human ship had broken down in Federation space. The stars were quiet that day when Ambassador Zixthela received the message. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly as she read the report on her screen. Another unknown ship was coming toward their space. This happened maybe once every few years, and it was always the same. A new species would find them, want to join their peaceful group of planets, and everything would work out fine. Zixthela was used to this. She had met over 40 different alien species in her long life. Giant bugs. Others were made of pure energy. Some were small and furry like the creatures on her home planet, but they all had one thing in common. They were all peaceful and civilized. She pressed a button on her desk. "Prepare the Aurora Prime Station for another first contact meeting," she said to her assistant. "Same as always." Make sure the gravity is set to normal levels and the air is breathable for carbon-based life forms. 3 days later, the human ship arrived. It was called the UES Horizon, and it looked different from other ships Zixtela had seen. Most alien ships were smooth and curved, built for beauty and efficiency. This human ship looked tough and practical. Like it was built to survive a fight, Captain Jake Morrison stepped off his ship and onto the station. He was tall, even taller than most species Zixtela knew. His skin was darker than the pale beings she usually met, and his muscles were clearly visible under his uniform. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Brooks, a woman with bright eyes who carried several bags of equipment. She seemed excited to meet aliens for the first time. "Welcome to Aurora Prime," Zixtela said in the Universal Translator language. "I am Ambassador Zixtela of the Valerian Council. We are happy to meet your species." Captain Morrison smiled, showing white teeth. "Thank you, Ambassador. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. This is Dr. Lisa Brooks, our lead scientist. We're honored to make contact with your Confederation." As they walked through the station, Zixtela noticed something strange. Humans moved differently than other aliens. They walked with heavy steps, even though the station's gravity was set to normal levels. Most new species had trouble walking at first because the gravity was too strong or too weak for them. But these humans seemed comfortable, maybe even like the gravity was too light. They entered the main meeting room where other Confederation members waited. Commander Claxton, who looked like a giant praying mantis, clicked his mandibles in greeting. The Nexari representative, who was mostly made of glowing energy, flickered in welcome. Several other species sat around the large table. "Please sit down," Zixtela said, gesturing to chairs that had been made to fit human size based on scans of their ship. Dr. Brooks sat down carefully, but then frowned. "Is something wrong with the chairs?" she asked. "No, they should be perfect for your species," Commander Claxton replied, his voice translated through the speakers. "They seem a bit fragile," Captain Morrison said as he sat down slowly. The chair creaked under his weight, even though it was designed to hold twice what their scans said. Humans should weigh. Zixtela made a note to check the scans later. Maybe there had been an error. "Tell us about your homeworld," the Nexari representative said, its light pulsing with curiosity. "We always like to learn about new planets." Dr. Brooks brightened and pulled out a small device that showed pictures. "Earth is a beautiful planet," she said. "We have large oceans, high mountains, and forests everywhere. The weather changes with the seasons." She showed them a picture of a thunderstorm. Lightning filled the sky, and rain poured down in heavy sheets. The aliens around the table went very quiet. Commander Claxton's mandibles stopped clicking. The Nexari's light dimmed with what looked like worry. "That weather?" Zixtela asked slowly. "Oh yes, that's just a normal summer storm," Captain Morrison said. "Nothing too bad. You should see what happens during tornado season." "Tornado season?" Commander Claxton whispered. Dr. Brooks laughed and showed another picture. A massive spinning cloud reached from the sky to the ground, destroying everything in its path. "These happen pretty regularly in some parts of our planet. We've learned to build our homes to survive them." The room became even quieter. Several aliens exchanged looks that the humans couldn't read. "What about the animals on your world?" the Nexari asked carefully. "Oh, we have amazing wildlife," Dr. Brooks said happily. She showed them pictures of lions, bears, sharks, and snakes. "These are some of our larger predators. Beautiful creatures, really." Zixtela stared at the image of a great white shark. Its teeth were huge and its eyes looked cold and hungry. These live on your planet with you." "Well, not exactly with us," Captain Morrison laughed. "But yeah, they're all over the place. The bears sometimes come into our towns looking for food. And the sharks, well, we just try to stay out of the water when they're around." "You share your world with these creatures and still manage to build a civilization?" Commander Claxton asked in amazement. "Sure," Dr. Brooks said. "Humans are pretty good at adapting. We've learned to live with dangerous animals, bad weather, and natural disasters. It's just part of life on Earth." "Natural disasters?" Zixtela felt her hearts beating faster. Captain Morrison nodded. "Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts. Earth keeps us on our toes, but it also made us tough. We can handle pretty much anything. The aliens sat in stunned silence. On Zixtela's homeworld, the weather was always mild. The most dangerous animal was about the size of a small earth cat, and it only ate plants. Natural disasters happened maybe once every 1,000 years. How do you survive? Nenexari asked quietly. We build strong buildings. We have emergency plans, and we help each other, Dr. Brooks explained. When a hurricane hits, everyone works together to rebuild. When there's an earthquake, we dig people out of the rubble and keep going. Captain. Morrison stretched in his chair, and the aliens heard his joints pop. We also stay in good physical shape. You never know when you might need to run from a bear or climb out of a collapsed building. Zixtela watched as the human casually lifted a water container that would have taken 2 of her people to move. He drank from it like it weighed nothing at all. Your people seem very robust, she said carefully. We have to be, Captain, Morrison replied. Earth doesn't give us much choice, but it's made us who we are. We're explorers, survivors, and problem solvers. That's why we were so excited to find you. We want to learn from other species and share what we know. The meeting continued for several more hours. The humans told stories about climbing mountains taller than most alien buildings, diving to the bottom of oceans under crushing pressure, and exploring frozen wastelands where the temperature could kill most life forms. They talked about these things like they were fun activities they did on weekends. When the meeting ended, humans returned to their ship for the night. The alien representatives stayed behind, staring at each other in shock. Did you hear what they said about their planet? Commander Claxton whispered. They described hell and called it home. The Nexari flickered nervously. Zixtela looked at the images Dr. Brooks had left behind. Pictures of storms that could destroy cities, animals that could tear apart starships, and humans standing in the middle of it all, smiling. What kind of world creates people like this? She wondered out loud. None of them had an answer, but they all agreed on one thing. These humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. The question was, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? As Zixtela prepared her report that night, she chose her words carefully. The Confederation needed to know about these newcomers. She wasn't sure how to explain what she had learned. How do you tell a peaceful galaxy that you've just met people who consider deadly storms and giant predators to be normal parts of life? How do you explain that these humans seem to think their harsh, dangerous world was beautiful? She finished her report and sent it to the Confederation Council. Tomorrow, they would continue talks with the humans. But tonight, Zixtela found herself looking up at the stars and wondering what other surprises the universe might be hiding among them.